All right, good afternoon and welcome to the GMC June membership meeting. For those I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Peggy Kelsey. I'm the board chair of the GMC. It's wonderful to see another large group at our member meeting here today. This is the last meeting of the season before we break for the summer. So again, thanks for being here. I'm sure many of us came here today with significant sadness in our hearts as we continue to process the news of the passing of our dear friend, Dr. Mike Lovell, president of Marquette University. Mike's been a longtime GMC board member, a visionary in higher ed, and a generous presence in our Milwaukee community. His faith, compassion, integrity, and significant courage are traits that drew all of us to Mike. And as we strive to live our life a little more like Mike Lovell, let's keep his spirit near to us today. Now, turning to today's meeting, I would like to start by welcoming two new members to today's meeting and into membership. And I would just ask you to stand or wave your hand when I say your name. With us today are Matt Cook. Matt, there you are, right back there. Matt is Executive Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Chief of Staff of Direct Supply. And Ann Reed, where are you, Ann? There you are. Ann is the new Executive Director of MKE Phil. Welcome to you both. I hope you've seen some familiar faces here today and that you've been introduced to some new ones. Once again, we've been invited to gather in a new space, this time through the generosity of another GMC member, Michelle Nettles. Michelle is the Chief People and Culture Officer of ManpowerGroup, so she understands a thing or two about making people feel welcome. While ManpowerGroup is known to be an international workforce solutions provider, more locally, we always celebrate their commitment to community solutions right here in Milwaukee. Here to tell us more about this is our host and my friend, Michelle Nettles. Michelle?
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our CEO and Chairman, Jonas Priesing, welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about ManpowerGroup, our purpose, and our continued commitment to our community. I don't know how many people are aware that ManpowerGroup was actually founded here in Milwaukee, and we're just a little over 75 years. We celebrated our anniversary at the same time as the GMC. Founded by a lawyer, Elma Winter. I believe some of you in the room may have met Elma before. We have always had a commitment to community, and it started with Elma's values. And we continue that today as we fast forward. We believe in something very simple, and that is the meaningful and sustainable work. It really does have the power to change the world. Just think about the dignity that you feel each day that you're able to go to work. And yes, work sometimes is frustrating. Yes, your boss sometimes get on your nerves. But the realities are that work allows you to be you. And there are so many people around the world who never get that chance for a number of reasons, be it housing, be it education, be it simply discrimination. We believe in the power of work, and we do that every day. We put 600,000 people to work on a daily basis. So in doing that, we've been doing it for 75 years, and most people know us as Manpower, and that's where we started. But we operate in 75 countries, and we have 4 brands, Experience, Talent Solutions, and Manpower, all under our holding company, parent company, ManpowerGroup. I'm proud to work here today and to continue to support 600,000, 2 million a year in finding meaningful employment. And what we stood for when Elmer started is what we stand for today. We challenge and we champion the ways of working. We work to change the world through work. We champion equity and inclusion everywhere we go. And we know that investing in people create talent to scale. As business leaders, talent is your most valuable asset. And so we encourage you to continue to invest in your people, to reskill, to upskill, and to create pathways for employment. Here at home in Milwaukee, we remain committed to our community and our 3 pillars, very simple, ready for work. So we focus on how do we help individuals develop skills to help them attain employment. Skilling individuals up, those individuals who are at work, skills are often changing and updating. And so how do we help you help your teams continue to reskill and upskill? And then integrating and including. We know globally that there is a talent shortage. And so what you used to think you need for talent may not be what you need as you go forward. And so through a number of partnerships here in Milwaukee, we continue to support and advance our own purpose and mission. And with that, I'm going to conclude because I see the governor just walked in. And so thank you, and again, welcome to ManpowerGroup.
I would recognize, as you're sitting down, that this may feel a little bit like an old cabinet meeting of yours here for a second. My former colleague Peter Barca is right here. Karen Timberlake, who served in the governor's cabinet, is here. So it's like old home week for you.
But you're all laugh.
See, and Corey Nettles, who served in a previous administration, you go on to do great things, Governor.
There you go.
Joel Brennan. Just as we start, we're going to have a conversation here for a little while. We really appreciate you being here. I know you're jetting back off to Eau Claire, I think, after we're done here, or La Crosse. But as we start, I'm going to ask a handful of questions. We're going to get to the issue of education and MPS because that's on everybody's mind here, and we're going to talk more about that than anything else. But just one thing to talk about, we got the mayor and the county executive sitting here, and last year we were finally successful in getting local government some additional assistance. You were right front and center with that. And just a little bit of an assessment as to, is that working? Is it working better? Where are we going now? And there was a number of things that people in the community here had a tough time swallowing related to that. Is there any chance of those things, of us getting relief of those things in the future? So hitting you with that question to start.
Well, thanks, and the mayor and the county executive played a huge role in that, and clearly all across the state of Wisconsin, not just our cities, but I'd say in particular our smallest places in the state, smallest communities, really were struggling. And I was the first to say this early on in my time, is that a lot of the hard work that's done is done at the local level. And it's important work, whether it's health, whether it's libraries, whether it's fire, whether it's police, you name it. And the state hadn't done their job, in my opinion. And so it's good to have a bipartisan solution, and when it's bipartisan, a lot of things, there might be some things that need to be looked at going forward, but we worked hard to make it happen, and it's too early. I mean, the budgets are what they are, and so I anticipate next year at this time we'll have a better view of that. But just from my vantage point, it looks good. I would say that there's some of the medium-sized Oshkoshes and La Crosse and others of the world feel that the smaller municipalities got more percentage increases and all that. But we'll work on that going forward. The bottom line right now is that I think it was well overdue and bipartisan win for the state of Wisconsin.
And I guess I would, just speaking on behalf of the mayor and the county executive who are here, it didn't fix all the problems. I think we all could appreciate that, and there is more work to do. But I think it was also a testament to what the business community and the civic community aligned with really some leadership in the public sector.
Yeah, no question. And, you know, no one likes to think about that, you know, we're going to increase taxes or provide more help at the state level, which, you know, that money comes from taxpayers too. But there's just a lot of need out there and a lot of work that has to be done. And if we want our municipalities and townships to thrive, we have to make that type of investment.
So speaking of investment, a lot of what I did when I was working with you was around the ARPA dollars and the CARES money before that. We were creating programs because there were industries that were absolutely suffering and being decimated. We're now getting to the end of those ARPA dollars having been around and the investment. What's your assessment of how we've done in Wisconsin, and what are we doing to kind of keep pushing on what we've been able to invest in through ARPA?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I am proud to say that we were number 2 in the country as it relates to using ARPA money for business and economic development. Number 1 in one, number 2 in the other. And we worked hard on this, and I'll just give you a small example. And this is one of the joys of the job. You see some success stories. And we put a fair amount of money into our Main Street Bounce Back program, and that had pieces in the city of Milwaukee too, where we would provide $10,000 to any entrepreneur that wants to take over a vacant storefront. And that happened. We to the tune of 10,000 new businesses and small businesses in the state of Wisconsin, some of them right here in Milwaukee. And most of them are still thriving. I was up in northern Wisconsin this last week and visited several. They're doing well. They've added to the vibrancy of their downtowns, and this happened in Milwaukee too. And so I feel that's a small example. We certainly, you know, put some money into the farming, the agricultural industry right from the get-go because of the impact on them, as far as getting their product to market, that sort of thing. But I think we did number 1 or 2 in the country. So I feel proud of the what we did, because we knew we had a strong economy here in the state of Wisconsin, and we wanted to make sure that continued.
With the fall will bring significant change in Wisconsin. There will be new legislative maps, and no matter where you are on the ideological spectrum or what party you are, it's almost a certainty that instead of operating with huge majorities on one side, that it's going to be much narrower. What does that mean for you? But also, what does that mean for people here who are interested in making sure that they have a voice on public policy? Does that make it easier for us? Does it make it easier for you? More complicated?
I'd say it's going to be easier. And here's how I view this right from the get-go. And you may have noticed that a few of the people from my own party didn't want my solution. And but I promised the people in the state of Wisconsin we wouldn't go from gerrymandered Republican maps to Democrat gerrymandered maps. That was the wrong move. We're a purple state. I believe that it's going to make in my opinion, we're going to take some seats from the Assembly that we didn't before, and the Senate that we didn't have before. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you're going to see moderates kind of rule the roost in the legislature. It's going to be moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats, and I think it'll be a different world. I think there'll be Robin Voss, if you're here, Robin, you can disagree with me, but I think that's a good thing. The majority of the people of the state of Wisconsin come from that world, moderate, and as a result of that, I think we're going to be in a good shape.
Well, and I hope that the lesson it is for all of us is government, in my view, as a student of public policy for a long time, government is strong when you have a strong executive, legislative branch, judiciary, but also outside interests that, when well organized, can have an impact. And I think part of what's happened in the last decade or so is that there's been less of that as you've had alignment in one side. And I think we're all hoping, or on behalf of this room, I'm hoping that that's part of what can change as a result of this.
Yeah, I just think when most of the people are kind of geared around the middle, that's going to hit a sweet spot that we haven't had before, and haven't had for a while, let's put it that way.
So I think most of the rest of the discussion here is going to be centered around education, starting with early childhood. You've been, an advocate. You say what's good for kids is good for Wisconsin. The Child Care Counts program was one that really propped up a system that has lots of fissures and failures in it in early childhood. There was lots of federal money. I think you found some of the last of the ARPA dollars to prop that up for, up until the end of this budget. What are the prospects moving forward? What can organized advocates here in this room, elsewhere, do on a critically important issue? We'll get to K-12, but there are so many kids who are starting poorly. What can we do there?
Yeah, that has to be a strong system, and right now it is a teetering system. And I'll just talk about it. I can talk about it in terms of education. I want to talk about it in terms of jobs and the economy. When we have in Iron River, Wisconsin, the one and only child care provider going out of business because they can't make it happen with the system they have. And suddenly there's a whole bunch of people in Iron River, Wisconsin that leave the workforce. And when one kid leaves, that's one parent that's going to be not available to work. And that's an economic issue, that's a business issue. And so I think we have to provide some resources to help, to make sure those systems succeed. And I know a lot of businesses, frankly, do that with their own child care situations, but at the end of the day, across the state of Wisconsin, there's the possibility of thousands of those providers, and seemingly I've been in every one of them, it seems like. But I've been in a lot, and the work they do there is obviously a good way to prepare kids for school, K through 12 school. But at the end of the day, it's also about workforce, and we just can't say, well, as some of my friends on the other side have said, well, it's a bad business model. Well, how is that a bad business model, taking care of kids? And so I think the state has a role. It's going to take some effort to get the other side to agree with that, but I think we'll get there. And I think this next election will help.
And do you have any insight or any suggestion for groups like this or the individual employers here where they can have more leverage? It's been my observation that when K-12, in terms of advocacy, when K-12 shows up, there's oftentimes a lot of people from the business community there, less so in early childhood. And is there something that groups like this or that we can do to be better advocates?
You can be, and I hate to say this, but you can be better advocates if you do visit some of those places nearby. And they're more than willing to show you around, more than willing to show you what they're, how they're providing for the kids. And they'll probably be glad to show you how they're, Portage, Wisconsin, this is no lie. I was there visiting at their early childhood place, one of them, and met a mom who has 4 kids. She pays $900 a week. Multiply that times 52. That makes it hard to continue on in the workforce. I mean, she had a good job someplace, but she was thinking of leaving, that she may have to because it's just too darn expensive. And so to me, reaching out to them directly, and there's ways to do that. I mean, obviously they have folks that advocate for them in Madison, but I think if you've got one nearby, visit.
Well, just up the street here, the Thrive On project, as you know, just had their ribbon cutting. I don't think the Maleka daycare is open there yet, but that's an example of a successful provider here. And there are lots of them, some represented in the room here, but it's a very challenging environment, and the business model doesn't work for anybody, as you know.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it's so important to have kids get that good start, but it's also important for mom and dad to stay in the workforce. I mean, think about it, if that industry goes broke, and many of them are right on the edge, that's going to take thousands of people out of the workforce, thousands.
Okay, one question about the other end of the educational spectrum in higher ed. You've already come out and said that you're going to propose, I think, the largest increase in spending for the UW system. All of us, as members of the GMC, we have the leaders of both public and private institutions in the area. I can tell you, none of them is as healthy as they would like to be. What is it that, what are the prospects of that succeeding in the next budget? You just appointed a couple new regents. There's politics aligned with all that. What's the status of higher ed these days with you?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, if you look at the past history, and I'll just use for my time, any budget that I've proposed for the University of Wisconsin system has either gone to zero or almost zero by the time it leaves the legislature. And in the past, it was, frankly, there wasn't much of an ask, and there was almost none. And then, of course, there were tuition freezes. That's hard. That's hard. I know their numbers are, getting smaller. We have fewer children than we had 10 years ago. But at the end of the day, they've been taking it in a very bad way and unfortunately, a lot of it's based on politics. Some campuses doing something wrong or something like that. But at the end of the day, they asked for $400 million. Doesn't even begin to make up from the last 15 years. And it costs money to run a show. I mean, I know you've all, been probably talking about our friend from Marquette that left us this couple of days ago or a day ago. But I knew him on the Board of Regents when he was at UWM. I knew him when he was at Marquette University. Higher education is teetering also. We can do this make this happen. I know we can. Do I think it's going to be easy? No, but we're going to work hard. And in the past, the leadership from the regents wasn't so concerned about it, having a tuition freeze and having no money coming into the system, and that's going to change.
All right, so the last part of this, I want to talk about education broad scope in Milwaukee, and specifically about MPS. We set this up 6 weeks ago or so, and maybe it was prescient. I hope not, but a lot of news over the last several weeks has been only bad as it pertains to education. That was in the wake of the approval by a very thin margin of a very significant increase through referendum with MPS. Over the last few weeks, we've seen evidence of, at best, incompetence. I think it's fair to say around the way that they report to the state and the way that they get their resources. You came out on Friday with a proposal about what to do there. You and the mayor both had things to say about this just in the last few days. From your perspective, and I think you evoked what had happened 15 years ago when McKinsey came in and did a big review at MPS, and you were part of that effort. What does this, where are we going now in your view? And then ultimately, I think that a lot of us here want to talk about what role do we have to play in it. But first of all, what role did you outline for the state to play and for you particularly on Friday?
Well, I'll give you the reason why I did that, just begin with, because it's first of all, the work that MPS didn't do, I was going to say did, but didn't do, around some real basic things like getting your information to the Department of Public Instruction. I used to work there, you may remember. And the idea that they'd still be talking about that now is just, mind-blowing. But that said, it's a reflection. It's a reflection on the state. It's certainly a reflection on the school district. So but I immediately saw that there were different groups that were going to be advocating for X, Y, and Z, blow them up, increase vouchers, whatever the solution of the day was. There was all the solutions that, frankly, to me, if you're going to make decisions, you have to have good data. And I know the data. Some people say, well, the data's there. Kids aren't achieving at the level they should. But at the end of the day, if we're going to be looking at what the system looks like, we have to do an audit first, and we're going to do that. And we're also going to be doing one. In fact, I think we're just put out some information today on that. And we also believe that it's necessary to audit the school side, the kids side, and the instructional side. And that's what we're going to be doing. Clearly, they're not two separate things, or they are two separate things. We're not going to get one group to do the operation, one that does the academics, but we're going to do both, and we're going to do that quickly.
So, and I guess I would offer up, the GMC worked with the mayor in last year and his administration on an operational review. We raised the money from the private sector, had Ernst & Young come in and do a very deep dive, and we're now in the execution stage. And I think that that's a good model. The one thing, I guess, that I would ask you, and you've worked with MPS over the years, we had great cooperation from the mayor, from, personally, from every member of his cabinet, from all those, a lot of the good ideas bubbled up from inside. Can we believe that the same is going to happen in an organization that transparency has never been the hallmark of MPS, and I think a lot of what we're seeing and facing now is a reflection of some lack of transparency, lack of information that was out in the public domain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the good thing is we have the mayor, the county executive, and others on board, the board, and the city council. So from that part, I think it's going to be great. I don't think there's going to be any problem. We are going to be doing this as soon as possible. I know we're having some internal conversations on that. But yes, we want people to be involved. We want, frankly, one of the things we need to do on the academic side is we need to listen to teachers. We need to listen to parents. I'm also one that believes that success in the classroom is classroom-based, but also we have to make sure that things are good in the city. So we anticipate, involving people in the city, parents, and it's going to be as full of an opportunity for us to get the information. Clearly, we would, you put some folks together, we'll bring the auditors in, and we'll talk with any group. This is going to be a huge lift. We're going to be spending some money on the state side to make that happen. But it's really important, but it's also important to view the classroom not as one teacher and 20 kids or 30 kids or 15 kids. It's what's happening in the city that causes things to not go well for kids in the classroom. It's a full load that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, and I guess I would volunteer on behalf of the people here that there is input. I don't think there's many people here, and there are some educators in the room who know about classroom instruction, and they could provide valuable insight. There is lots of expertise here about running big business and being involved. I was on a phone call this morning with a group in Charlotte, Mecklenburg School District, and for the last couple of years, they've had loan executives actually go into the public school system there, and I think there's value in that. I think we want to explore more of those types of things, but that's on the business side where people have lost confidence. I think we all know where there are challenges on the academic side, but I think that there are people of goodwill and organizations that are willing to be involved in that.
Yeah, and I just have to make sure that everybody knows that I'm an educator at heart. This is not to push this off to the side to say, well, okay, we'll solve this 10 years from now. We need to solve it now. But in order to solve it, we need to know what the data are going to show us, and this group can certainly help with that.
One more question for you, and if you have time, we'll take a question or two from the group here. There is certainly a conversation around governance. The last time you did this 15 years ago, there was a conversation around governance of MPS. Where does that fit in the current climate? Should we be having that discussion now? Is this the appropriate time to have at least some conversation around that?
To me, that's a solution. I would prefer that to hold that conversation till the end. We need to collect data, but certainly I'm not here to beg you, but I'm here to tell you that I think that that's one of the solutions. Okay, let's turn it over to Chevy. It's his problem, and now things are going to be fine. It's deeper than that, is what I'm saying. And so we need to look at what the data show, and then I think we step into how's it governed, that sort of thing.
Great. We have a few more minutes with the governor. I've asked some questions. I would welcome anybody from the audience who has one. We have time for one question. I think that's my birthday mate back there who is saying we got time for one. Corey.
Governor, I appreciate the approach you're taking on getting the data. I think most people here who run large organizations understand the importance of that. But I just want to underscore, once we have the data, then it's about execution and action. And as a native son of this community, I have zero confidence in the ability of this current board to act with the good data you're going to give them. So, you're a subject matter expert, you're a former state superintendent. We're going to need leadership to make this happen once we have the data.
Sure. And this isn't a audits we're doing for the Board of Education. It's an audit that I'm doing for the state of Wisconsin. So there's a difference there.
Well, we look forward to your leadership and the mayor's leadership and the help that we all want to provide to finally get MPS on track.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we'll give you the last word. Again, you're flying out to La Crosse, but this is a group of people who I think they have goodwill towards you. We live in a fractured society. I'm guessing, just looking around the room, not everybody votes for you, but everybody. That wasn't me, not me. You still have a chance with that.
I thought I was someplace else.
But you understand how much they appreciate, they honor the work that you do. So what call to action do you have for those of us here who are people who want this community to thrive and succeed?
Yeah, and I know you all do, but Court just talked about it. I know you're frustrated with various parts of government, and in order for us to do the right thing, we need you to stay involved. Please don't give up on government, whether it's state, local, school board, no school board, whatever. We have to have the future of our state in a good place, and that's obviously our kids. But we have all sorts of other issues to deal with in the state of Wisconsin. So thanks for inviting me, and I know some of you didn't vote for me, that's okay. How's it going? Good to see you.
As the governor makes his way out, we had some other things that we had put on the agenda, but today didn't feel like the right day to do those things. Rob Henkin is moving into a different role at the Policy Forum, and at some point we should celebrate that, even though he's going to keep doing work with us. There were other things that we were going to discuss, but with the news over the weekend of Mike Lovell's passing, we just didn't think this was the right time to do that. But I do think, and I hope that you agree, it is the time for us to have a follow-on discussion to some of the things that the governor just talked about. I went back and I looked at an interview that Mike Lovell did just after he was diagnosed with cancer about 3 years ago and first went into treatment. And he talked about, when you are staring mortality in the face, that it's a kind of the impetus is to do the big things, not sweat the small stuff. And there are big things for us to do as a community and big problems and challenges, some of which have just been revealed to us, some of which we've known about for a long time. And I think all of us feel like it's time for us to step up and do that, to honor people like Mike, to honor Jose Olivieri, another community leader who we learned just passed away over the weekend. So, for the next several minutes, we hope you'll turn back to each other, have conversation around especially this issue related to what can we constructively do in the school system around all of the kids who are in the Milwaukee school system. That's about half the kids who are in the public school system, the other half are in charter or private schools. And we have a responsibility, we all understand that. We have an obligation that we all also have opportunity to do things that are constructive and engaging in that. So we hope that you'll do that. We won't take all the rest of the time, and then Peggy will conclude with us. But I hope that to honor somebody who, in my view, reflected and embodied courage, grace, in the way that he attacked issues in the community, attacked and in a public way, attacked and shared his own health journey with us. I hope we can honor that by chatting with each other for the next 10 or 15 minutes. And again, we appreciate everybody's active involvement and engagement today. So thank you.
That was not a good start, everyone. If we're going to have business and community involvement, come on now. So, at the very core, it was about governance. And the engagement, again, of business and community, and the understanding that this cannot be a win-win, city or county, without a solid educational system. And that we are all responsible for making it happen, no matter where we live. We have this great downtown, but people will not be coming here or staying here if we don't have a good education system, whether it's Milwaukee Public Schools, charter, or choice. But right now, we have to get on the horn, come together, deal with the hard issues, but governance is really the core. We have lost superintendents because of governance issues. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about.
This may just be my experience, but the only thing, and I talked about this at the table, but it seems to me I've been in a number of these meetings and we lament about MPS in particular, but I've never really been in a meeting where the so-called other side was there. Somebody from the school board, somebody from the union, or whatever. So it seems like we're talking to ourselves, but we're not having a meaningful dialogue with, the other side of the story. And so until we do that, I'm not sure that there's going to be real breakthrough.
I think that's valid, and I think part of, I don't know if I can put words in the mayor's mouth, maybe he wants to speak for himself, but I think he's talked about getting the right people in the room. You now have a system where there are, and they're a vanishing breed, but there are still some in the community who think that the voucher program is going away, even though it's been here for 30 plus years. Or some, frankly, on the other side, who would just as soon have MPS fall under the weight of itself, and we pick up the pieces from there. And I think there are lots of us who live in a place where we say there will continue to be three kind of separate but complementary sectors where we are educating kids in Milwaukee, and how do we make sure that all of those kids are getting better? And again, if that's what I think that's part of what you have talked about trying to put together. It is a different way, I think, than we have had over the last many, 3 decades or so, where it's always been pitched battle. And I think you've got to get some of those people who've been part of that pitched battle, have them stand on the sidelines where some of the rest, where most everybody else lives, get them into the conversation. I hope that's where we're headed now.
Joel, at our table we had chaos because the problems are so daunting. But one thing we agreed on is that, and this is John, echoes what you're saying, why not bring in some of the schools in the charter and voucher system, such as Milwaukee College Prep, Milwaukee Lutheran, Boston Ramirez. They're making it work. They're actually succeeding. What are they doing that MPS isn't doing? And they have open enrollments. It's not whatever. So maybe that, John, we build on that. Let's hear from why they're succeeding and what can we learn from that to help MPS.
Yeah, and I hope this doesn't sound defensive, but I think the conversation has to not just be with the high-performing schools in the other sectors, but a recognition that there are schools in each of those sectors that are failing kids too. So we got to make sure that when we're having a conversation, it's around, and again, I think some of us, like the governor was talking about data, and that's important, but we need to make sure that the conversation covers the breadth of kids who are being educated in the city. Like that's what we want to make sure that we are all in defense of. Because I would tell you that over a period of time, I think that the Greater Milwaukee Committee was seen as being the great defenders of the Milwaukee public schools. And I would be happy to be the great defenders of the kids in the Milwaukee public schools. I think it's no longer defensible to be a defender of the administration, the school board, the teachers union. Like there are actors in here who have not always been, I think, acted on behalf of the kids. And so I think for all of us here, and I hope what I can portray and convey is that we want to make sure that for every kid who's going to an MPS school, we are going to stand up for them, but there are other actors in there who I think need to, in some ways, we need to have a different conversation than we have. Clarence.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I'll just quickly echo some of the comments that have been made already. I think that as a community of business leaders, we have to recommit to MPS. They have 65,000 kids or so in their care, providing education and other support services. Now is not the time to give up. They're going through a very difficult time. There's a lot of work to be done. I think our role is to embrace, is not to push them away. There are a lot of complex issues that need to be solved, and the only way that's going to happen is if we all come together and recognize that we cannot afford to let 65,000 kids languish, and that's what's happening right now. So I would really encourage us, let's recommit to the success of that school in our community.
Thanks. Just real quickly, at our table, we talked a little bit about 0 to 6, or birth to 6, and particularly birth to 6 literacy. There's a lot of really well thought out research that I don't know much about, but convinced me is that a lot of the game in education, candidly, while we leave no child behind and we never give up on anyone, the data tells us the game's sort of over by the time you're 7 or 8, and we're not spending much time thinking about particularly literacy in those years. And that also is an opportunity for where we don't have entrenched positions politically or otherwise, where we can come together as a community to look for solutions in that regard.
At our table, we talked about a number of things, but among those topics was the leadership issue, and certainly regarding the school board. I think it was Corey who mentioned about the loss of confidence in the school board. I think that's a big issue, and the question I had was, do they have to be recalled, or is there somebody who has the authority to reappoint? And certainly the corporate leadership comment, I think maybe the governor raised a wonderful idea. There are those people who will stand up and take a role or would be willing to volunteer their time even in the difficulties of this. On the flip side of the coin, I echo a little bit of what Clarence talked about. I've learned a little bit. I have a family member who's a teacher, has been for years in the MPS system, and I've learned, he's a brother-in-law, and I've learned a lot about that. The one thing about the choice schools, and we think about that as maybe the solution, but when those children are selected out of public school into the choice schools, you're taking a degree of intellectual capital that's going with them that makes it more challenging for those remaining to grow and develop and learn, because we all learn together, as we all know. It's the human experience. The point is that there are then situations where the choice schools get to a point where they're exiting students, asking them to leave because they've not performed at a level. But it's after the point in which the funding is allocated. I don't understand it well enough. There's apparently a timeline when the state funds, and if they're not in school by that time, you're not getting funding for them. And the public schools are, in a sense, force-fed the students who are then coming out of the choice or charter schools. I'm not an expert on those, but causing more dilemma within the MPS system. So there's quite a bit to address here, a holistic approach. Definitely needed, and I definitely love the fact that advocating for the kids is where it's at. Whatever the problems are at the administration level or otherwise. And by the way, one last comment he told to me from an insider was, you gotta deal with the administration. That's where the problems are. The board is one thing, but it's the administration where there's so much challenge.
I just want to clarify, last comment. So there's third Friday counts that happen twice, and Abby's, I don't know if she's still in the room. And I just want to super clarify. So there's third Friday count that happens in September and it happens in January, and then pay actually happens based off of the students that you report. So that's one. And all schools who get public funding are subject to that. The same thing happens with MPS students. So charter schools are students who are participating in parental choice. So my point is, and it's back to this gentleman's point, I think it's important that we have all of the stakeholders from the ecosystem so that we can get educated, because that was inaccurate. So we all, and I chair a board of a charter school that's been a member of parental choice in a charter school. So the funding, how the state administers the funding, it's done as fair as you can. And no one can close their doors to any student, no matter what the student comes with.
Thank you. Again, Linda, I think we want to make sure, and in our community conversations, we want to make sure that we're having passion that we bring to it, but also making sure that whatever we do is reflective of the right data and the right information. Go ahead.
We have a great private university here in Milwaukee, but we have to have great public universities, and we've defunded the UW system massively over the last 10, 15 years. And it's really important that we have a strong, great research institution in our UW systems, and we cannot afford to defund the public universities. I think we discussed that at our table as well.
All right, with that, I'll invite Peggy up to close us out today. And before that, I just want to once again thank you, Michelle and Jonas, and our hosts here at Manpower for welcoming us in. I'm old enough to have, I worked at the city when Manpower left their headquarters in Glendale and came here. And I was working at the city at the time, and sometimes like moving a company a few miles, you don't think as being of huge impact, but this has huge impact to Milwaukee and in your presence worldwide. And I don't just say that because I live about a mile from here, and you've also helped shore up my neighborhood, but you have done that too, and you do that in all the work that you do in Milwaukee. So thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone, and I just want, first of all, thank you for the dialogue after Joel's conversation with the governor. We want to keep that going. We do have those note cards in the middle of the table. If there's something you want to jot down, pass to Heather or another member of the GMC staff, great. If you want to just email Joel or me afterwards, great. At the end of the day, collectively, we all know we need to have our voices heard in this. It's important. And this is your GMC, it's a member organization, and so we want to hear from you with respect to the role the GMC should play in this regard. So I want to thank you all for participating in today's meeting, including Governor Evers and our moderator, Joel. Thank you, Joel, for doing that. It's great to see such a great crowd here today. We really appreciate it. You are engaged, you are lending your voices, and that's what makes the GMC so special. We look forward to keeping this momentum going in the fall. While this is our last membership meeting until September, we are working on some additional things, perhaps smaller social gatherings between now and that meeting. So please watch your email, GMC newsletter, and the GMC LinkedIn page. Speaking of that, Heather very much wants me to remind you that if you haven't accepted, if you're on LinkedIn and you haven't accepted the invitation to join the GMC space on LinkedIn, please do so that you can keep up with things in that virtual space. We're trying to post things in more real time and engage in some dialogue on the LinkedIn platform. Generally at this time, as you know, I normally give something away. It didn't feel appropriate to do that today. So rather, I'm going to send you out with a wish that as we think about the important issues we have to tackle, as we think about the passing of someone as special to us as Mike Lovell, that I want to send you out with a wish that you and your families have a happy and safe summer. We'll see you soon.